Tra la 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 la. Happy birthday, sweet 16. Tra la 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 la. Happy birthday, sweet 16. Sing it, Dave.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're singing.
UFC on Fox 16. It's Fox's 16th birthday, the 16th edition of UFC on Fox. Are you excited?
Super. I'll start singing. Yeah, sure.
Neil Sedaka, Brooklyn's own.
I'm
I actually had a whole song planned about this being the Sweet 16 for UFC on Fox, but I won't subject you to that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
But we are here in Chicago, my friends, very excited for UFC on Fox number 16 and arguably one of the more important main events in the history of this little venture, right? Have a title fight, a much anticipated rematch between TJ Dillashaw and Renan Barao. I'm calling it TJ Dillashaw versus Renan Barao 2.75. 2 was supposed to be last August in Sacramento. Barao missed weight. 2.5 was in Montreal at UFC 186. Dillashaw pulls out due to an injured rib. 2.75 is this Saturday. What do you think?
I think I'll get excited about this fight if and when I see these guys actually get into the cage on Saturday.
So you're still a little skeptical.
Oh, well, I'm kidding. But, I mean, after everything that we've been through and, all the bumps along the way, we were both there in Sacramento last summer when everything went down and Barao had to pull out. So, I mean, this fight's been in the back of our mind for so long that, yeah, there's a little bit of like, I'll believe it when I see it.
Okay, let me ask you this. I felt they booked that rematch too soon. I felt like Barao was somewhat of a wounded animal. He took some major damage. To have him fight Memorial Day, lose the belt, get beat up, and then come back end of August seemed like a little much. Now he gets an extra, essentially 11 months to prepare for TJ. I feel like this benefits him. Like, that was a big mistake for him to take that fight back in August. Missed weight, clearly he wasn't there. Now he's getting more time. Do you feel like this scenario benefits Barao more so than Dillashaw, who was going to fight a guy who was essentially a wounded animal, in my opinion?
Sure. Yeah, this gave so obvious now in hindsight that how burned out Barao was at the time. You could see that coming all week, pretty much. Both back in May, he seemed like, he had been a very busy fighter, even heading up into the first Dillashaw fight. But all week long in Sacramento, he looked haggard. He looked, you knew something was kind of up. You didn't think it would go as badly as it did, but guys had a lot of rest. He got another fight under his belt. It wasn't his greatest performance, but it was enough to rehab his image to think, okay, maybe we can get him back in there again. And on the flip side, TJ Dillashaw was on such a roll there for a while, all the way up to winning the championship. So he ends up fighting Joe Soto. It wasn't necessarily his greatest performance, and now he's been out, he's been injured, and you wonder if he has a little bit of rust himself.
So in this scenario here, you got Barao, a guy who had not lost in 9 years, was on a 22-fight winning streak, a 35-fight unbeaten streak, amazing stuff, historic stuff, and he loses one fight. Comes back, as you mentioned, defeated Mitch Gagnon in December, but some people criticized him, thought he was himself. I think we could give him a pass. Do you reinvent yourself at this point, or do you essentially go back to the guy who was preparing to fight at UFC 173 with all that hype, momentum behind him?
I think a little bit of both. I think you can't really – he's a finished product by this point with the amount of time he's been fighting, the number of fights he has under his belt. These Novo Neo guys all kind of fight the same way. So I don't think Renan Barao is going to come out and be some vastly different fighter than he was before. But at the same time, it's possible people wrote him off too soon. You know how it is in this sport. When someone loses one time in the 10-year undefeated streak before that, gets completely disregarded. So, that's what makes this fight so intriguing. There's so many question marks coming into this, and we'll see.
I tend to believe in fight sports. There are certain guys who have their opponent's number. Mike Brown, Uriah Faber, Chris Weidman, Anderson Silva. Do you think TJ Dillashaw is that guy for Renan Barao?
We'll find out. That was such a one-sided fight the first time out, and you could say that, okay, maybe TJ got lucky and drilled him with that one huge punch early, and that changed the complexion of the fight, but sometimes that's all it takes. That was I'm struggling to think of as one-sided of the title fight as we saw there. I'm thinking of Rich Franklin beating down David Loiseau. It was that much of kind of a butt kicking, except you don't usually see the champion take it like that. So I don't know.
By the way, I hate to bring it up, it's fresh. Rafael dos Anjos, Anthony Pettis was pretty one-sided as well.
That as well.
Yeah.
Sure. And, but that is, that's the question. I brought up Loiseau because he was never the same fighter after that.
Yeah.
So, we'll see, but it could very well be the case.
One of the stories that has emerged this week is Dwayne Ludwig, the former head coach for Team Alpha Male, and now really just a coach for Dillashaw, works with Danny Castillo, has worked with Benavidez as well, coming out and saying that Dillashaw is the only one that really wants to be a champion from that team. And then you have guys like Cody Garbrandt and Lance Palmer, members of the team, getting into an argument with him on Twitter, and I can't imagine that this is not a distraction for Tate Dillashaw. These are his friends, his teammates, arguing with his coach. Do you think that will mess with him at all?
When push comes to shove, I don't think so, because he's just such a professional. Everything that he's gone through simply to get to this point. You don't get here unless you have just incredible mental focus. Maybe this means bad things for Team Alpha Male going forward after the fight, but I can't imagine him not tuning this stuff out and just doing his thing. He looked great today in the open workout.
I thought that was an Aldo Montoya reference right there. Just incredible. So you were comparing him to the great, just incredible.
Yes, he was. It's an ECW title fight coming up.
Yes. By the way, do you like the idea of putting a title fight on Fox? They're not going to give away a Ronda Rousey fight anymore on Fox. They're not going to, put the heavyweight title these days. I know they started this way, but bantamweight division, not the biggest stars. A great fight on paper. Do you like this strategy by the UFC?
I do. You also have to consider the fact that they have advertised this fight on pay-per-view twice now and not come through either time.
That's
so,
true.
It may have been difficult for them to sell this as a pay-per-view at this point. But yeah, it's summer. There isn't a whole heck of a lot of other competition going on. So if you want to distinguish yourself and draw some eyeballs, then why not put a title fight on cable TV network television if the situation's there.
Live and free on Fox. Let's not forget. You could put an antenna on top of that old box of yours, and you could probably get this. Do people use antennas? It's like people who say, don't touch that dial. No one really uses a dial these days, but it's a nice thing to say. So the antenna thought for me is still a nice one.
Is that a New York thing? Is that in Brooklyn you have
we open the windows, the kids play on the stoop, they open the fire hydrant, everyone gets wet. All right, what's your prediction? Look into your crystal ball. Who's winning on Saturday?
Dillashaw. I kind of go with your theory or your question that Dillashaw may have his number. It's just, I feel like he's just taken his game to another level. He's already, pretty much battered Barao from pillar to post last time. There's another old reference for you. Maybe I am just judging Barao harshly based on one bad performance a year ago, but it's hard to see TJ losing this.
Does he finish him?
He finishes him again.
Early or late?
Late.
All right. Stoppage like TKO or submission?
I think it's another TKO.
Okay, I like it. Let's talk about the co-main event, Miesha Tate versus Jessica Ai, a very important fight in the women's bantamweight division. Do you think the winner of this fight should be next in line for the title fight, which of course is being played out next week in Brazil? So the winner of Rousey Betchkohea, should she fight the winner of this fight on Saturday?
Depends. It depends on what happens and how the winner of the fight wins the bout. I think, you have to consider that Ronda is coming up on the that sort of period that dominant champions have where they need to start recycling challengers because they're just kind of chewing through everyone pretty easily. So I think, should Jessica Ai win this fight, all other things considered, Miesha Tate's a pretty big scalp to have on your resume. She's already beaten Sarah Kaufman. I'm sorry, that fight got resolved. But, if you look at her body of work, it's been pretty impressive. And I think if she scored an impressive win over Miesha, it would be Jessica would be a solid new name to push.
Of course, Betchkohea winning next week completely throws everything up in the air because you'd think that they do an immediate rematch for Ronda. Do you think that it's even sellable to do a third match with Miesha Tate after Ronda beat her? I know the second fight went 3 rounds, and that's kind of her claim to fame at this point, but do you think people would even want to watch that?
She's still, other than Ronda, the biggest name in the division. She's still popular. You saw here at the workouts today, she signed autographs for everyone here. The fans do love her. So I think simply from that perspective, she might still be a sellable fight, but I do think she needs to go out and finish Jessica Ai. That would give her, 4 wins in a row. Her last few wins have been decisions. That would be an emphatic statement. And I still think, maybe it might be a little too quick to go back, but what would the other options be at that point?
Is Ai on her level?
We'll find out.
What do you think?
I think it's a bit, I think, let's see what happens when the fight goes into deep waters, because Miesha, when things get crazy, that's when Miesha tends to amp it up another level. So, if Miesha kind of weathers the early storm there, then we'll find out.
Who wins?
Miesha.
Finish?
Decision.
Nice. All right, let me get your thoughts on the last 2 fights on the main card. Paul Felder taking a fight on a month and a half notice. Very much a Donald Cerrone type of fighter. Their friends, training partners, wanted to come to the workouts. Wasn't even invited. He wasn't even on the list, but the guy gets it. He's very smart. And on top of all of that, incredibly entertaining. Beautiful spinning back fist KO against Danny Castillo. Undefeated, fighting Edson Barbosa, who's always fun. Human highlight reel. Who are you picking?
First, I have to ask you, is this your people's main event?
The people's main event, that's a very good question. It's not. We'll get to that in a second. But this is a great fight.
Yeah, agreed. This one really could go either way, It's a super intriguing fight to me because Barboza, we know what Barboza is capable of at his best, and we know what he's capable of at his worst, and you never know which Edson Barboza is going to show up. And Felder, like you say, I mean, you kind of summed it up there. He's a Donald Cerrone protege for a reason, and also capable of exciting fights. And you get the feeling that this is a guy who he just gave off a good energy today at the workouts, and this is a guy who knows that this is his moment and is prepared to seize it. So I think I'm going to go with Felder.
All right, and how about the people's main event? Joe Lozon versus Takanori Gomi. Now, why is this the people's main event? Lozon, the bonus collector. Gomi, I think everyone still kind of has a soft spot in their heart for the Fireball Kid. I'll go with this one. But that was a very good call on your part, your pick. Don't be a bias picker here.
I just love this fight.
Yeah.
I just love this fight. I'm going to say if Gomi can keep it standing up, he has a real solid chance of knocking Joe Lozon out. And if Lozon takes it to the ground, he submits him.
All right. Great stuff there from Dave Doyle. Happy Sweet 16 to UFC on Fox. This is their 4th time coming to Chicago for a UFC on Fox event at the United Center. And all 3 previous times were in the dead of winter, January. Were you here?
I was not. I'm
freezing.
Unhappy about that.
Freezing. Now it's boiling. We've been schwitzing here for the last 3 hours, but it's good to be here in July for a UFC title fight live and free on Fox this Saturday. It will be TJ Dillashaw defending his title for the 2nd time, this time against the man he defeated Memorial Day weekend 2014, one of the best fights and upsets in UFC history. TJ Dillashaw, can he recreate the magic that he put on display Memorial Day weekend of last year against Renan Barao? This will be a big one for him. And once again, one of the biggest live and free fights in the history of UFC on Fox. The storied and rich history, 16 events culminating here at Chicago. All right, we're done. We'll be with you on Saturday. Look forward to that coverage. Thank you for watching the coverage up until this point. And for now, I'll say goodbye. That is Dave. I am Ariel. We'll sing you out as we say goodbye. Tra-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la. Happy birthday, sweet 16. Tra-la-la-la-la-la-la-la.